Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, we're going to start this time talking about the fight against corruption. We're joined this morning by Mr. Zik Obi, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, let me take it from this front page lead story about FG set to name Treasury looters. I remember when this judgment came up in July, the government said, yes, they agree with it, they'll comply. But Sarah was speaking with the Attorney General, and therein he said, yeah, the President has given that directive to agencies to compile those names. And then we also do remember that recently, the CJN did come up with some directives. There's a monitoring committee. There will be judges to look at monitor cases, corruption-related cases. And we also know that there are some other attendant issues. But if you were to have an assessment of where we are today in our fight against corruption, what would that be?
Well, let me say that the fight started very well with this new administration. They made quite a number of findings. Persons were arrested, and we had a lot of media trial of people. A few of them went to court and didn't succeed. We also do know that quite a number of them have succeeded in court. But in my view, the fight that started very well, I think the tempo has gone down, even though there are noted successes. But I don't think that with a few of the things that have happened about high-profile persons in government who have been fingered in one way or the other and are not being investigated, it dampens the tempo of the fight against corruption.
When you say the tempo has gone down, in what respect? Activities of the courts or with the anti-corruption agencies, or which one?
No, the courts are doing very well, I must say. Like we all say, it is not the courts that prepare the cases. It is not the courts that prosecute. The court will only deal with the evidence you produce before them. And we do know that some of the prosecutions have not been well handled and that they have failed in court. But when we also do know that there have been problems between the Attorney General and the prosecuting agencies, for example.
Does it still exist? I thought that that perhaps may have been resolved.
Yes, you know, these things linger on. They don't just disappear. You see, the fact that it could even happen at all goes to dampen the enthusiasm of people. There's no reason why, first of all, the Attorney General is supposed to regulate the activities of EFCC, ICPC, and the other prosecuting agencies. But when there are, from what we heard a few months ago, and all the threats, even the one issued by the Special Assistant to the President on prosecutions against EFCC, then you know that all is not well.
So where are we now in the fight against corruption? Would you say that we have moved appreciably from 0.0 to 0.5 on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, let me illustrate that by a few examples. You know, when we look at the way things have gone, there have been allegations made against people in government, for example. And what has the government done about them? Virtually nothing, to the best of my knowledge. We heard about the allegations about the MTN bribery scandal involving somebody in government. One would have thought that an investigation would have been conducted by the appropriate agencies. But we haven't heard anything about it. We know about the case, in fact, the major one of the monies found at the Osborne flat, which was claimed to have been kept there by the DG of one of the security agencies. Most people thought that it was not right that the government would constitute an internal investigation of it. It is not the government's business to investigate such.
Is that perhaps the reason why we've not gotten a report from that?
Well, up till now, we don't have a report. If you remember, when the president was abroad, we were told that the acting president, who was then the vice president and who did the investigation, cannot pass the report to himself. The president has since come back, and we are still waiting to hear what the outcome of the investigation is. You see, when you don't release these reports or do something about them, you raise doubts in the mind of the populace about this fight against corruption. And it emboldens other people who otherwise would have been behaving well to say, oh, nothing will happen. If these other people who have been fingered in this corruption
wouldn't that be at their own peril if they run with that impression?
Oh, yes. I mean, yes, but if they know that most people are not caught, if they take risks, many people take risks and get away with it. That doesn't make it right, but that's the where we find ourselves.
You know, when you started out, you talked about media trials, yet you talk about informing the people about what is happening. Why would you use media trials?
Well, you know, there are quite a number of discoveries or recoveries that we have had on the newspapers, and they've gone to court. When they go to court, they don't succeed. After all the noise in the media, they go to court, they don't succeed. There have been, I remember when was a senior advocate who came here once, who said that the problem we have with the administration is that we don't have the properly trained prosecutors. In every part of the world, it is not the investigator that does the prosecution. You must have, even in Britain, you have the serious frauds section that does investigation. And when they finish, they pass the information or what are their findings to the Crown Prosecution Service.
Mr. B, you sound like you're indicting the legal system. I mean, the legal training that our lawyers get here. Is that what you're trying to do?
No, not at all. You see, prosecution is not the everyday practice that every lawyer does. For example, I'm a lawyer. But first of all, I don't deal in criminal matters. That's number one. Even if I did, being a defense lawyer is not the same as being a trial lawyer or a prosecution lawyer.
Yeah, but I think after that, when the SAN spoke here, I think the Attorney General, not long after, they had this meeting with, I think, DPPs in different states. They were trying to harmonize activities. So that means that they're taking some things on board with a view to correcting the entire process.
Yes, they are doing that. I was reading an article by Olisaba Koba, I think it was last week, on this same matter, when he says that the agency that fights prosecution does not have enough budget to fight it. And that if you called him to come and do a case, in fact, at once, the chairman of EFCC, Farida Waziri, called him to come and do a case. And when they told him how much the fee they will pay, he said, sorry, he can't do it.
Okay, we'll go to break at that point. Sorry to jump in. We're back in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back, continuing our focus on tackling graft. We've got Mr. Zik Obi here with us, a legal practitioner. When you say that the SAN says those agencies don't have enough funds, maybe I should let you finish up, but does that then mean that the agencies are not coming up with the appropriate budgetary provisions, or they're not defending it properly, or what?
Well, both. First of all, you must have enough budgetary provision to be able to defend properly. Don't forget that those you are charging to court are those who have made a lot of money, and they can employ the best legal minds to defend them. So you also need a very sound lawyer that is well known.
But how do you budget for those? Do the SANs have a range of fees they charge?
Well, I'm not one, but I hear that they do.
Okay. So that means the EFCC and those agencies should have at the back of their minds.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
But whatever happened to pro bono? It doesn't exist anymore?
Pro bono is there, but in this kind of case, pro bono is for those who are indigent people who can't afford lawyers. Then you help them. But not those who... pro bono is not for government. Pro bono is for the defense, mostly. The government is prosecuting. Government must have the money to do the prosecution.